So we've come to lust of power and idle chatter. And sometimes they go together. But we're going to kind of take them a little separately and then we'll put them together as well. I think a lot of us today, when we say lust of power, we think immediately political. You know, it's that whole idea of, you know, running for office or doing this or doing that. And that really isn't what it's about. Because each and every one of us, through our pride, has this ability to lust after power. We like to lord it over other people. And sometimes that could be through idle chatter. You know, did you hear what happened to this one? You know, the gossip that goes on. What I call in Ukrainian chastity, the holy gossip. It's the same thing. Because if we are able to put other people down, it elevates us. At least in our minds. The other thing today with the internet especially, and I notice it a lot, that if you say something, people immediately are trying to fact check you. It's the idea that they have to be right. You can't be right. Because if you're right, then they're wrong. Their way of thinking is not the same. And again, this becomes a real lust of power. It's very hard for us today to give other people the chance to be right. You know, it's funny because I'll never forget there was a priest, and I don't know if he's still alive or not, Father Basil Pennington, and he was an order man. I forget whether he was Dominican or whatever he was, but he gave a retreat at Catholic U when I was there, and he talked about the sin of doing too much. And I thought that was really fascinating. Because his books were all centered on the prayer of the heart, the Jesus prayer, basically. All his books were written from that perspective. And he said that sometimes we could sin by doing too much because God may have wanted that grace for somebody else, and we kind of take it over. Sometimes it can be a lust of power. It's something that I always say to my brother priests, because they say, well, why do you always do so much? And I said, well, because of the fact that if you would say yes when the bishops ask you to do something, I wouldn't have to say no. And they just look at me. Sometimes our lives take that turn of events that we need, if you want, to be the top dog. You see this in the business world. Everybody wants a promotion, everybody wants a raise, and there are two ways to get there. By being the person who works diligently and is a true and honest, nice person, and the person who will step on every single person on his way or her way up the ladder. Because let's face it, it's not, what's the word I want? Ambition is not just a male thing. It can also be the females. Doesn't matter who you are. Ambition could take over, and it takes over our heart to the point where we don't care about anybody else. We become indifferent. Doesn't matter what anybody else does. This is my ladder to success, and nobody better get in the way. It was funny when I was in minor seminary, and actually we were studying to be celibate priests, and there was one professor that always said to us, dear students, be careful on how you treat your classmates, because one day they may be your bishop. And I always liked that. It was very, very wise and very good way to put it. We sometimes don't get that fact. And the same thing with idle talk. You know, how often do we spread gossip that we don't know whether it's true or not? How often do we take things, and I hate to say this because there was a time when I would trust the news media and take it at gospel truth, you know, but then again, my hero was Walter Cronkite. You know, that's the way it was, or that's the way it is on this day or whatever. And nobody ever questioned him, because he always had at least 2 or 3 sources before he would give a story. He would never, ever go on one source or rumor or anything else. And I think that's what made him the newsman that he was, that everybody called him Uncle Walt. You know, everybody looked to him for the news because they trusted what he had to say. And today it's very difficult, because you have all these people. You have conspiracy theorists on one side that are saying it's this, you have people on the other side saying no, it's that, and there's no middle ground anymore. This idle chatter has taken us over so badly that even during COVID, you had families being ripped apart because of the political pressures that were going on. Well, I believe that this guy's doing a job, and I don't believe that this guy's doing a job. And there was this tension, this pulling apart, and all because of idle chatter. All because of the news media, all because of this, that, and the other thing that got in our heads, and we don't think about it. But even in parishes, you have the same problem at times. Thank God Whaleyville doesn't have that problem, but you do have this problem where you have, people that are either against the priest or against the parish board or against this one or against that one, and you hear all these rumors and all these talks about people that are unsubstantiated. And for us as Christians, we are supposed to open our heart, and we're not supposed to think evil of our brother as we'll get into the next part of the prayer, because that's what really combats this first part, right? The first part is what we ask God to take away from us, to take away from our hearts, so that now we can honestly and truthfully rely on Him, His strength, and His mercy. So many times also with idle chatter, we become the judge and executioner of the person. And trust me, we forget sometimes. Murder is not just committed with a gun or a knife or a rope or a candlestick, if you remember the old game of Clue, right? It can be done with words. Because we attack someone all the way to the heart. Look at how many kids today are committing suicide because they are bullied. They feel like they have nowhere to go, because other people are picking on them, making them feel less. And again, it goes with lust of power, this power over another person. So my dear friends, as we have now completed this first section of the prayer of Saint Ephrem, every time we say this, and we should be saying it daily during Lent, let us honestly think about what we're asking God to take away from us. They're not just words. There's a much deeper meaning. And it should go to our very hearts, to our very souls, that we then examine our own conscience, our own mind, as to where we've been during this time. From day to day, perhaps even minute to minute or second to second. Let us think about these things. And if we still find that we're falling from them, then even more fervently say, Lord, take these from me, because I want to get in to the things that we're asking you to give me, not take away. So again, I'm going to ask you to venerate the Holy Cross. I will take the cross away, but I will leave the flowers. So you can take whatever flowers you want. I prefer you take them all. If you can, take some home.